Hi, I'm Rita. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Life Worth Reading. And welcome to a new video. I have been a little bit out of the loop. I haven't posted a video in 2 weeks, and that is because I had, if you've seen my last vlog, you'll know, but I actually had surgery on my nose. It was on the inside of my nose. It's fine. It's because I have sleep apnea, so it's just a thing to help me breathe better. And even though it was a quick recovery and a simple surgery, I actually got sick right after. So I spent the whole week recovering, and then last week I also had like a really important test, and it's just been like a tough time at my university because I am almost finishing my semester. I have only about like 3 weeks of school left, which means that all the deadlines are just piling up. So surgery, I got sick, and then I had a lot of university work to do, so I've been kind of missing here for a little bit. So I'm sorry that I have been absent, but I did want to film today because actually yesterday was my YouTube anniversary. I celebrated 3 years on YouTube and specifically booktube, which feels really wild to say. I never thought that I would stick with it for as long as I have. I have done over 100 videos in 3 years, and it just feels really amazing to say that. Obviously, I am not a big channel. I am a very small channel, right? But I'm really happy about celebrating 3 years on booktube. I have been so grateful. I've met amazing people through booktube. 2 of my best friends today I met through booktube. I have so many international friends due to booktube that I hope to meet one day. And yeah, even though I'm not a big channel at all, I'm just really grateful for anyone that still watches my videos or anyone that has ever watched my videos. And I'm really excited because it is something that I'm very passionate about. I do this because I like to do it, and I've been sticking with it for 3 years, and I'm very proud of myself for that. And I hope that 2024 is an even better year for me and for my channel and for you. And so I thought that because I just celebrated 3 years on booktube, I don't actually think I've ever done a video about my all-time favorite books. I've done yearly favorites every year, but I've never told you the list of my favorite books, like my ultimate favorite books. These, get to know these books to get to know me. And what better time to do that than today, after I just celebrated my 3 years on YouTube. So that's exactly what we are going to do today. I have a list of my top 10 favorite books. It was actually really hard to pick. I did not think I had as many favorites as I actually do. But I picked my 10 favorites, and I also have like a little category at the beginning of a specific genre that I really love, which are all 5 stars that I could include in my favorites. And then also I want to mention a few almost favorite books. So this will be a kind of a long list. So without further ado, let's just get into it. And these are my all-time favorite books. I think that before I get started, I'm actually going to be talking about those books that could have been on my top 10 but are not, because they're in a specific genre, and that is memoirs. I absolutely love memoirs. I am a memoir girly, and almost every memoir that I listen to becomes a new favorite. I just really love the genre in itself. But I do have 4 that I want to tell you about that are like my all-time favorite memoirs so far, of course. And those are, in no specific order. First of all, Becoming by Michelle Obama, which is one of the first memoirs that I ever listened to. I loved Becoming. I read it on ebook first on Scribd, and then I listened to the audiobook again. I think it was either later in the same year, which was 2020, or the year after, but I reread it through audio, and it was just amazing. I love Becoming. Michelle Obama is such an inspiring person. The way that she has always studied and just worked so hard to be better. She's such an inspiring person. I absolutely love the way that she presents herself and the messages that she has. I loved hearing about her childhood in the south side of Chicago. I loved hearing about her studies, her family. I didn't really love specifically the parts about her marriage to Obama. I did like how she took this position with such grace, which is such a hard position to take, because when you first meet someone that is just interested in politics, what are the chances that they'll become the president of the United States? So I think that she took this position and this opportunity, and it's obviously complications of being a Black woman in the public eye, with such grace and dignity, and I just really, really admired her, right? And so becoming was an incredible experience. I still don't own it physically. I desperately want to. None of these memoirs I own physically, but I do want to. And it was just a 5-star. Like, what a memoir. What a life. Next up, I have The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. This was one of the first books that I read when I first got back into reading, and I want to say it was 2018 maybe. And this book is about Jeanette Walls and her growing up in the 70s in the United States with a father that is both a genius and a very weird and mentally ill man. It was such a tough read. She went through some things that are just really, really hard to read, and I absolutely loved the writing of this memoir. I thought it was incredible. I love the way that she described her childhood, and I just love hearing about it. It had very strong imagery, very strong visuals that I can still think of today. And if you ever get the chance to read it, I think that you definitely should. It's one of the best memoirs I've ever read, even though it is a really tough read. And I'm very glad that I read it, and I desperately want to own it physically so I can reread it. Next up, we have a very trendy pick, and that is Crying in Hmart by Michelle Zauner. I loved Crying in Hmart. I think I read it last year, right? 2022, I think. And it was such an amazing experience. The audiobook specifically is incredible. The way that Michelle Zauner narrates this with such pain. There's so much life in this audiobook. It's so sad. There is just so much going on. It is about Michelle Zauner's childhood, her rise to stardom, primarily the relationship that she has with her Korean mother, and the disease that her mother had and how that affected her. It's about her roots with Korea, and it's just about identity, about family relations, and it's just such a heart read. It was amazing, but it was just, I want to own it, but I don't think I'll ever be able to reread it because it was just really, really tough. And it puts you in a really weird mental space of, if you haven't been through it already, of course, which is horrible, like the death of a parent. And just thinking about that makes me so sad and gives me so much anxiety. So, amazing book, but very, very sad. And lastly, on a slightly happier note, we have the memoir Hola, Papi by John Paul Brammer, which is a memoir that I listened to that I really, really loved last year. It is told in essays because John Paul Brammer has this, I think, magazine like weekly thing where people can send in questions, and so he picks the questions and he made a little essay of it, and that's how the memoir is organized. And I loved it. It's about John Paul Brammer growing up gay, and I think that he's half Mexican, if I'm remembering correctly. And so it's mostly about his identity, his sexuality, his race. It's funny, like he's hilarious, but there are also some really deep moments within. So it's a very great balance of comedy and also seriousness, and John Paul Brammer being very vulnerable and open, which I really appreciate. And I just love him so much. I want to own this book so bad. Like, this is a book that I do see myself rereading, and it is a slightly underrated book. So if you have a chance to listen to it or read it, it's very, very good. You'll laugh, maybe you'll tear up a little bit. I did, and it's such a good book. So you should definitely go check it out. And yes, those are my favorite 4 memoirs. They could all be in my top 10 because they were all 5-star reads. But without further ado, let's just get into the books. And also, just to clarify, when I say favorite book, it could mean a lot of things. All of these books are 5 stars, and all of them are favorites because I could definitely see myself rereading them, or I have reread a few of these. I don't usually reread books unless they're my absolute favorites. So that's kind of what got me into picking between some 5 stars and others. Because if I've already reread these books, or if I think about rereading these books all the time, if they stayed with me, then they're definitely my favorite books. So with that in mind, let's start with my number 10, which is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. Now, there's a lot to be said about this book. There have been some bad reviews about it, and I want to talk about that because I absolutely adore this book. This book is about Patricia and a group of moms in the 80s, or is it the 90s? I think it's the 90s, in where? Charleston. Okay. And they have a book club that Patricia is really bored by. They're all reading like these really boring classics, and she wants to read some crime baby. And so they start picking out these sort of riskier books and scary books. And then a man moves into town, a man called James something. James Harris. And he is attractive, he's smooth, he's cool, and maybe he's a vampire. Patricia seems to think so because some really weird things are happening as soon as he comes into town. He has some very shady attitudes, but once she tries to tell the people around her that he's a vampire, they obviously do not believe her. And so this book is mostly about the roles of women in society, right? Especially in the 90s in the South. It has also some great notes about racism and about the treatment of, for example, children of color versus white children. So it has a lot of politics and social commentary put into a really graphic book sometimes. Like, this has a lot of body horror. It's not exactly what I thought a vampire would be portrayed as. The way that he works is not how I would figure a vampire would work. So it is very terrifying. It has some really scary and disgusting scenes. And it's just about women. Cue Saoirse Ronan. Women. It's mostly about that and about their roles in society and how women should be treated better because they do a lot of works and they're not just, in this specific case, stay-at-home moms. So there's a lot about that. I don't know. This is a book that I first read and I loved it, and I reread it and I loved it again. And so just because of that, like, if I ever read a book, I love it. And James Harris, what a frightening character. What a frightening man to have around. Like, that is scary. So yeah, I love this book. I'm so glad that I bought it. I kind of bought it on the whim in 2020, and then I read it and I really, really loved it. And it's been 3 years and I haven't stopped thinking about it. So definitely one of my favorites. Yeah, like towards the bottom of the list, but still a really, really great favorite. And probably one of my all-time favorite horror books that I've ever read. Like, this is really, really creepy. Next up, we have My Brilliant Friend by Elena. This is an incredible book. Like, this author really did it. This is an Italian author that no one actually knows who she is, which very slay. Like, she's very famous, but no one actually knows who she is. So she's getting the best of both worlds. And this book is just amazing. I have the whole series, but unfortunately, when I tried reading the second one, I got into a really bad reading slump. And now I'm at that point where I would have to reread this one, which I will do gladly before I continue on with the series. So I'm actually going to be doing that in 2024. I'll be reading this one and finally continuing on because I have the whole quartet. And this book is basically about our main character, Elena, and her friend, Lila. Lila, right? Yes. And so it is about them growing up in Naples, which is in the south of Italy, during the, I think I want to say 60s. I keep looking at this, I'm sorry. I can't remember. I think it's the 60s. I think so. And it's just a really violent place where they grow up, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say tragedy in tragedy itself. There's a lot of crime, there's a lot of violence, and basically there are kind of like frenemies. And I love a good toxic friendship between women, and it's a very good exploration of that. This book starts many years later as Elena is reflecting on their lives together. And so the first book is about their childhood, then the second book is about their teenagehood and early adulthood. Then the next book is about their adulthood and so forth. And this book is just about their childhood, and we see this with the childlike innocence that they had and how that innocence was most times ripped away because of their circumstances. And it's just a very good exploration of politics, economics, and social politics as well in Naples during this time. And it's just, the writing is amazing. There's also a lot about education, which I really appreciate. And it's just one of those books that, like, it just spoke to me. And I read this in Portuguese. The translation is amazing. I think that when books are Latin based, when languages are Latin based, they translate better to Portuguese, so I don't mind. I don't miss reading this in English at all. I think that this translation is amazing, and the writing is just spectacular. Like, I love this book with all my heart. What a book, right? I can't wait to reread this and continue on with the series to see where it ends up, because just what a book. Next up, in my number 8, this feels wrong to put in number 8 because this is such an amazing book. And that's what I mean by these are interchangeable, because this might as well be like number 3 or 4, but that is Catching Fire by Miss Suzanne Collins. Guys, this book, what an incredible second book in a series. I have obviously the whole trilogy here. The trilogy is amazing. We all know this, okay? But Catching Fire is where it's at. Catching Fire is where it's at. This is the best sequel I've ever read. Like, this truly does stand the test of time. The fact that I tab this, I rarely ever tab my books. You will see this. Even my favorite books, like, only 3 of them are tabbed, so you know it's real. I tabbed this book, and I will tell you, I only read the Hunger Games trilogy in 2020. I know, I was so late to the game, okay? I had seen the movies, like, I saw Catching Fire and I was like 13 when it came out, and it just, I didn't get it at the time, okay? I didn't get it. I was too young to get it, I think, too immature. I didn't get it at the time. But this I got when I was 20, okay? I got this. Finnick changed my life. Like, if you get me started talking about Finnick, I will never stop. Like, that man changed my life. This is just the best sequel ever. The quarter quell games, are you kidding me? The way it ends, are you kidding me? Everything about this is absolutely incredible, untouchable. 5 stars, 10 stars. This is it. This is where it's at. This is the real literature. This is real. And forever a favorite. I am due for a Hunger Games reread. Okay, I am definitely due. But this is just where it's at. I love this book with all my heart. And Suzanne Collins, you really did that. And you know you did. Let's move on to number 7, and number 7 is a book that I don't own physically. I desperately want to, but like, the covers irritate me. I love the original self-published version, but that only sells for really, really expensive, and I don't particularly love the new cover. But that is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Listen, the writing in this book is absolutely incredible. This is about Constanza, and she accidentally kind of marries a Dracula figure that is very abusive towards her. So it's very like historical fiction. You span a couple of centuries, you move around countries in Europe, and I do love a historical book. I do. And so the fact that this is like fantasy with historical elements, and the writing is so lush, it's so beautiful, and it also got me to enjoy, okay, this is a minor spoiler, so skip like a few seconds if you don't want to hear it. But the fact that S.T. Gibson got me to enjoy a polyamorous relationship is unheard of. I do not like that. I do not like that. I am a monogamous girly, so I do not enjoy romances that... I don't enjoy romances overall, but I definitely don't enjoy romances that are that. So the fact that she got me to enjoy one, good for you, S.T. Gibson. You really got me with that one, because this book was just amazing. And the way it wraps up, beautiful. The writing, beautiful. I need to have a physical copy, but I have something that I don't like about the cover, but I'll get over it. Either I'll wait for it to get republished with maybe a different cover, or I'll just get it and it'll just have to be that way. But yeah, I loved this book. The writing, astonishing. I want to have it tattooed on my forehead. Like, the writing of this, spectacular. Next up, we have a book that I also don't own physically, that I really, really want to have so I can reread, and that is Elena Knows by Claudia Pinheiro. This was my favorite book of 2022, no doubt. I read this book because at the time it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, if I'm not mistaken, and I read it like on a whim, and oh my god, also the writing, again, the writing of this book. This book is about Elena, and she is a woman that is elder, I think, already, and she suffers from a very rare and violent form of Parkinson's, which is really hard to read. And she has a daughter named Rita, actually, that kills herself, that commits suicide at the beginning of the book. And so she's left alone because Rita was her prime caretaker, and she is desperately trying to discover what happened to her, because she's the only one that believes that it was not that and that she was actually murdered, but no one else believes her. And it is such a harrowing thing to read. It's so hard to read. But again, the writing is spectacular because Claudia Pinheiro takes the form of Parkinson that she's talking about, and she mimics it in her writing. I can't really explain what she does, but the way that she writes her sentences, very rhythmically, very circular motions. It's very just like a spiral, you know, and it just mimics the way that Elena feels because of her Parkinson's so well, and the fact that she kind of functions from pill to pill. So like when she takes her pill, she feels better, and then the longer she stays without her pill, the worse she gets. And so the writing just mimics that cycle really, really well, and it's so heartbreaking. And I don't know, I just love this book. And it also went into some themes that I was not expecting, such as women's rights and the ownership of bodies. And I just really appreciated all of that. And I loved this book so much, and I want to own it so I can reread it and annotate it, because the writing was something truly that I've never encountered before, and that I have been thinking about ever since. Like I remember, like I read this book in April of 2022, and it was just a mind-blowing experience for me, honestly. So I definitely recommend this book. It is incredible, and you will be supporting a South American author, so that is a bonus as well. And it's just an amazing book if you want to experience what writing could be, like what writing can be when put into the right hands. This is the most experimental way of writing that I've connected with the most. So I definitely recommend this book. 5 out of 5. I loved it so much. Then for my number 4 and 5, I want to talk about 2 classics. So the first one that I want to talk about is definitely The Picture of Dorian Gray. I don't really love this edition of it. I need to get a better one. This is translated. I've reread this book a couple of times, and I've reread it both in Portuguese and in English, so I've read both. And I also, now I want an English version of this book, like an original version of this book, because this is not that cute. Like, it's cute, but it's not what it could be. And we all know what this classic is about, right? By Oscar Wilde. This is about Dorian Gray, who is a very innocent character at the beginning of this book, and then he's slowly corrupted, right? And as a friend of his paints his portrait, Basil, he paints his portrait, and as Dorian becomes more and more corrupted, the painting ages, it gets damaged, but he doesn't. And so there's kind of like this pact with the devil that is made, but it's not really that explicit, I don't think, or at least I don't remember, but it's very much about that. So it's very about innocence and the road to corruption, how you can be influenced by the people around you, and it's just amazing writing. Like, do I need to say it? Oscar Wilde, like, we all know. This is just amazing. I don't get why people say that this is boring. Like, I've read some reviews and I'm like, this is anything but boring. And the way that it gets down, so unexpected. When I read that the first time, I was like, I could not have figured out where this went if you paid me. Like, just amazing. What a great time. I love this book, and it was definitely my favorite classic until, and that's when we get to my number 4. Okay, that's when we get to my number 4, because my number 4 is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Guys, I have never read that many classics, which is why maybe both of these are my favorites, because I've never read that many. But I'm currently reading Jane Eyre. I am 317 pages into it, so I'm more than halfway through, and I am so obsessed with this book. So obsessed. This is a 5-star already. It's been a 5-star since page 1. Okay, this has changed my life. This has changed the way that I perceive literature. This has changed everything. Okay, everything. I am currently reading this book for my English literature class of the 17th and 18th centuries. No, 18th and 19th centuries, that's it. And so we first read another book, it was fine, but now we're reading Jane Eyre, which I've never read before. Obviously, I've said that, but what a life-changing book. This is about Jane Eyre, and this is an autobiography, and it's about her growing up. She is a dependent at this household where people do not like her. Her family does not like her. They actively hate her, they actively hurt her, they actively punish her constantly. And so when she grows up, she starts working as a governess in the palace mansion of this guy named Mr. Rochester, who is, by the by, in my opinion, one of the worst characters in literature ever. But in a good way, right? Like, in a good way. In a good way. And it is about their romance, it is about other things as well. It's very gothic in nature, and it's just amazing. The writing. I cannot believe that there was ever someone that was able to write like this. Every sentence, like I underline almost every sentence. This is just the purest form of poetic writing. It is beautiful without being overly poetic. It is just incredible. I love everything about this. I love Jane. I love the imagery. I love every minute of the story. I'm never bored. I adore this book. Like, this is my all-time favorite classic, and I haven't even finished it yet. And yeah, by the way that I'm annotating it, I know it's for class as well, and I'm writing an essay on it, but I'm just in love. I'm in love with Jane Eyre. Charlotte Bronte, you are my best friend. You are truly my best friend. This is unheard of. This is unheard of, and you really did that. So thank you so much for doing this in 1847. I am appreciating it 220 something years later. Here I am, loving it, obsessed. Thank you. For my number 3, we also have a fantasy series, and we have the first one in the series, and that is A Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. Amazing, amazing. I read this book because of Meg with books, because she adores the series. It's one of her favorite series of all time, if not her favorite. And so I was inclined to read this book. And why do I love it so much? Because it is also a fantasy mixed with historical fiction. This is set during the Victorian times and is about our character Mary Jekyll, who is the daughter of Mr. Jekyll, if you know the story of Mr. Jekyll, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And so the whole point of this book is to take characters out of other forms of literature and put them all in this book. So we have Mary Jekyll, we have Catherine Moreau of Dr. Moreau's Island, we have Justine Frankenstein, we have Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, the whole shebang, right? And it's just incredible. It's like you're solving a mystery of is it the Whitechapel murders? No, the Whitechapel murders are the real ones. I don't know if this is called the Whitechapel murders, but basically you're solving a mystery, and as you're solving the mystery, she's helping these girls along the way, and they're forming like this really cute found family of what they call like monsters. And oh my god, I have the whole series. I've loved the whole series. Here we go. The second book is Gigantic, which is the blue one, and then we have the third one. But the first one is definitely my favorite one. The mystery is so well done. The way that they meet each other, the found family, the historical aspects. I am just in love with this book. I'm just in love. I adore this book so much. Definitely 5 stars. I want to live in this world. I want to live in Victorian England with these gals. I want to be a part of their family so bad. Like, I want to be there so bad. And yeah, just amazing. I know this is not for everyone, especially because Catherine in this book is writing a book, and so there's a lot of interjections and they interrupt the book a lot with their like lines of dialogue. So it's really not for everyone in terms of format, but I particularly really liked it, and I really enjoyed it to be that way, and I didn't find it troublesome or annoying at all. I know it's not for everyone, but it was definitely for me. So definitely one of my favorite books, definitely my favorite series for sure, probably. And I love it. I love it so much. Okay, we are nearing the end, people. We are getting there. My number 2, Butter Honey Pig Bread by Francesca Chiuasi. Wow, was this book life-changing. I know I've said that a lot, but that's why they're my all-time favorite books. But this book was definitely life-changing. I also picked this up on a whim, very randomly. I saw it on Scribd as an ebook, and I loved the cover. And then I was like, okay, this book is about two twins that were born in Lagos, Nigeria, and something happens in their childhood, so go check out the trigger warnings for sure for this book. And now that they're grown up, they no longer speak to each other. They're in different countries, and they reunite in Lagos for something. They reunite there for something, and they kind of try to work it out. What did I love about this book? I absolutely loved the writing. Again, amazing writing. We keep saying that, but beautiful, beautiful, beautiful writing. Like, it's really hard to believe that this is a debut. And I also really love just the character work. I really, really enjoy that. Their names are Kehinde and Tay. And Tay is just one of my favorite characters. I loved her so much. And there's also like some really, I don't want to say weird in a bad way, but like with a bad connotation, but they're kind of like these weird elements of mysticism and religion and old African folklore that are intertwined in this story, which were really, really fun to read and really, really interesting to read as well. I really, really loved those parts. And it's just a beautiful story. I love sister relationships. I thought that this book was just beautiful. Like, that's all that I gotta say. The ending of this book makes me want to cry. I read it physically, and I have to read it again and annotate even more, because yeah, these tabs are not enough. I need to keep going. I need to give more. This book has given me so much. I am anxiously awaiting for Francesca Chiuasi to put other books out. Please, if you're listening to me, I need more from you. Please publish more. I need more of this in my life. And this book it impacted me in ways that I can't really explain. I shouted it from the rooftops in 2021, and I will keep doing so until everyone I know has read this. It's amazing. Amazing. And now it is time for my all-time favorite book. If you've been here for a little bit, you might know what this is, but also for those that don't, I have The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is a Spanish author, and this is about Barcelona in the 1950s, and we have Daniel, whose father owns a bookshop, and he goes into the cemetery of forgotten books, which is this underground layer, like an infinite kind of library where books are forgotten. And if you go there, though it is a secret, if you go there and you pick a book or a book picks you, and it's just like a very meaningful thing. And so Daniel goes there and he picks out this book called The Shadow of the Wind by an author called Julian Carax. And when he goes, he falls in love with this book, and when he goes to try and find more of his books, he finds out that they were all burned down, and actually that the copy that he has is the only lasting copy of anything ever published by Julian Carax. And so he goes into this mystery about who keeps burning down these copies, who is this author, and it brings him to all this sort of gothic places like the Montjuic Cemetery, and oh my god, I can't remember the name, but it's just very gothic in nature, which I really, really appreciate. Like, those are some of my favorite elements. It's also historical, it has a mystery. There are a lot of things about this book that you can probably tie together, and despite that, it also has some beautiful writing, beautiful descriptions of Barcelona. It has a great commentary of social commentary, political commentary, because they were under dictatorship at the time and after the World War II, and it was just a very tense political environment for these characters. And so there's a lot of layers to this book, and I just love this book so much. I own the whole quartet of the Cemetery of Forgotten Books. I loved all of them. I haven't read the last one because I'm terrified, but they were all really, really great books, but this is definitely my favorite. This is my all-time favorite book. Like, I've read this book 3 or 4 times now. I haven't annotated it because this is actually my brother's copy. I need to get one for myself. Like, I stole this and I have this in my room, but I can't bring myself to annotate this because it is not mine. But I need to get myself a copy so I can just rip it to shreds and just underline the heck out of it. This is just God, what a book. Like, this is my all-time favorite book. This is, in my opinion, the best book that has ever been published. Like, wow, what an incredible book. This is just amazing. Okay, so before I show you all those books, I just want to say that I love books so much. I am so happy that I created this booktube channel. I'm so thankful for those watching. Anyone that has ever watched, commented, shared, talked to me. It's just, yeah, I know it feels stupid to say, but I really am happy with this channel, and I'm so happy to share my love for reading and to hear about all of your love for reading. And let's hope for another few years here on booktube. So that's really exciting. So out of the ones that I do own, these are my all-time favorite books. I need to get a copy for all the other ones that I don't currently own, but these are my all-time favorite books. Also with those memoirs at the beginning, and there are also like 1,000 other books that I gave in 5 stars that are not like all-time favorites, but that deserve their own mention. But this video is already really long, so I'm not going to mention those. But yeah, these are my all-time favorite books. I love reading, I love books, and I can't wait to read even more of them that will become favorites. Like, this is such an exciting thought to me. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any favorites in comment, if you've enjoyed. If you didn't enjoy any of these books, I don't mind that as well. So let me know anything in the comments. And if you did enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for bookish content, and I'll see you in my next video. I hope you have a nice day, and always remember that life is worth reading.